I'm Rosalie, 34 years old, and until last month, I was living what seemed like a perfect life in Chicago with my husband of 7 years. But everything changed when Derek threw a pot of scalding hot soup on my head and screamed that I had 10 minutes to leave our home. What he didn't know is that I'd been preparing for this moment. If you're watching this video, drop a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from. Hit that subscribe button to hear how I turned the tables on my abusive husband in just 15 minutes. I grew up in a loving middle-class family in Michigan with parents who showed me what a healthy relationship looked like. They supported each other through thick and thin, communicated respectfully, and made decisions together. I always hoped to find that same kind of partnership for myself. When I met Derek at a charity gala, I was organizing for cancer research. I thought I'd found exactly that. He was handsome in his tailored suit with warm brown eyes and a smile that lit up the room. As the event wrapped up, he approached me to compliment my work. "The attention to detail was incredible," he said, handing me his business card. "I work in financial advising, and I know quality when I see it." Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant by Lake Michigan. Derek asked thoughtful questions about my event planning business and seemed genuinely interested in my dreams for the future. He spoke about his own ambitions with passion, discussing his work, helping clients secure their financial futures. "I believe in building people up," he told me that night. "My clients trust me with their futures, and I never take that lightly." Within 6 months, we were inseparable. Derek surprised me with weekend trips to nearby states, sent flowers to my office for no special reason, and remembered every detail I shared about my preferences and dreams. When he proposed during a sunset boat ride on Lake Michigan, I didn't hesitate to say yes. The diamond sparkled almost as brightly as his eyes when he slid it onto my finger. "You make me want to be a better man," he whispered. "I promise to spend every day making you happy." Our wedding was everything I'd dreamed of as a little girl. My father cried as he walked me down the aisle, and my mother beamed with pride. Derek's vows brought tears to everyone's eyes as he promised to cherish and respect me forever. The first 3 years of our marriage were blissful. We bought a beautiful townhouse in a trendy Chicago neighborhood and spent weekends painting walls and selecting furniture together. Derek's career flourished as he gained more high-profile clients, and he celebrated each of my business successes as if they were his own. My event planning business gained traction in Chicago's competitive market. I specialized in corporate events and charity galas, earning a reputation for creativity and flawless execution. Derek attended every major event I organized, proudly introducing himself as my husband and praising my work to potential clients. We built a circle of friends who saw us as the perfect couple. Weekend barbecues, dinner parties, and game nights filled our social calendar. Our friends Jennifer and Mark often commented on how Derek looked at me with such obvious adoration. "You two make me believe in love again," Jennifer told me during one girls' night out. "The way he talks about you when you're not around is so sweet." We discussed starting a family, planning to begin trying for a baby after our 5th anniversary. Derek talked about wanting a daughter with my eyes and spirit. We even started researching the best school districts in the area, preparing for our future children. Looking back now, there were subtle warning signs I ignored. Derek occasionally checked my phone while I was in the shower, claiming he was looking for a photo we'd taken. He'd question me about late-night events, asking for details about every person I spoke with. But these moments were so rare and quickly followed by affection that I dismissed them as nothing concerning. "I just miss you when you're not home," he would say with a smile that melted away my uneasiness. "Is it so wrong to want my wife all to myself?" I believed we were building something special together, that our love was strong enough to weather any storm, that Derek was the partner I'd been hoping for all my life. I had no idea how quickly that dream would shatter. The first real crack in our marriage appeared when Derek's company went through unexpected downsizing. He wasn't laid off, but several of his colleagues were, and the atmosphere at work became tense. Around the same time, he lost one of his biggest clients who decided to move their considerable portfolio to another firm. "They said it wasn't personal," Derek told me, his voice tight with frustration. but it feels pretty damn personal when someone takes their business elsewhere after 5 years. I tried to be supportive, making his favorite meals and listening as he vented about work. But his stress followed him home like a dark cloud. Small things that never bothered him before suddenly became major irritations. If I left a coffee mug in the sink or forgot to pick up his dry cleaning, he'd sigh dramatically or make cutting remarks about adding one more thing to his plate. Meanwhile, my business was thriving. I secured a contract with Lakeshore Medical Center to plan their annual fundraising gala, a prestigious event that would put my company on the map with Chicago's elite. When I shared the news with Derek over dinner, expecting his usual enthusiasm, his congratulations seemed forced. "That's great, Rosalie," he said, barely looking up from his plate. "I guess one of us has to be successful right now." The comment stung, but I chalked it up to his wounded pride. I tried to downplay my excitement about the contract in the following weeks, not wanting to make him feel worse about his own career struggles. Then came the first truly concerning incident. I had been exchanging emails with the medical center's board president about some specific requests for the gala. One morning, I went to reference an important email containing the event budget approval only to find it deleted from my inbox. When I mentioned it to Derek, he glanced up from his coffee with an odd expression. "Oh, I saw that when I was checking your phone last night. I thought it was spam, so I deleted it. Sorry about that." His explanation didn't make sense. The email was clearly labeled with the medical center's name and marked important. And why was he checking my phone at all? That same week, my college friend Jasmine visited from Seattle. We hadn't seen each other in person for almost 2 years, and we planned a girls' day of shopping and lunch. As we caught up over salads at our favorite restaurant, I found myself sharing some of my concerns about Derek's recent behavior. "He's probably just going through a rough patch," I said, trying to convince myself as much as her. Jasmine set down her fork and looked at me intently. "Rosalie, I know you love him, but some of what you're describing sounds controlling. Checking your phone, deleting work emails. That's not normal stress behavior." I immediately defended Derek. "You don't understand. He's always been so supportive. This is just temporary while he's dealing with work issues." "Just be careful," Jasmine warned. "My sister was with a guy who started the same way. Little things at first, then bigger things. It's like the frog in the pot of water that slowly heats up." I changed the subject, uncomfortable with her assessment. When Derek asked about our lunch later, I mentioned that I'd seen Jasmine. His face hardened. "Did she give you more advice about how to run your life? She's always had such strong opinions about things that aren't her business." "We mostly talked about her new job," I lied, surprised by his reaction. After that visit, Derek found reasons to criticize Jasmine whenever I mentioned her. He recalled incidents from years ago when she'd supposedly been flaky or judgmental, stories I didn't even remember. When she texted to plan another visit 3 months later, Derek suggested it wasn't a good time. "We're trying to save for a down payment on a better house," he reminded me. "Do we really need to spend money entertaining your friends right now?" Gradually, I found myself texting Jasmine less frequently. It was easier than dealing with Derek's subtle disapproval. The same pattern emerged with other friends. One by one, my social circle shrank as Derek found fault with almost everyone in our lives. Around this time, Derek suggested we combine our separate bank accounts. "It makes more sense for budgeting," he explained. "With one account, we'll have a clearer picture of our finances. Plus, it'll be easier to save for our future." It seemed logical, and I wanted to be supportive during his career difficulties. I agreed despite a nagging feeling of unease. Within weeks, Derek had taken over all our financial management. "You're so busy with work," he insisted. "Let me handle the bills and budgeting. It's what I do professionally, after all." The first serious argument of our marriage happened when I mentioned visiting my parents for their anniversary weekend. Derek immediately objected, citing the cost of the plane ticket to Michigan. "We can't afford frivolous expenses right now," he said firmly. "It's not frivolous, Derek. It's my parents' 30th anniversary." His expression darkened. "So my career problems are less important than a party." "That's not what I said," I protested, shocked by his interpretation. We argued for hours, going in circles until I was too exhausted to continue. In the end, I didn't go to Michigan. I told my parents I was too busy with work, too ashamed to admit the real reason. That night, as Derek slept peacefully beside me, I stared at the ceiling and wondered what was happening to us. To me. Something had shifted, but I couldn't quite grasp what it was or how to fix it. After the combined account solution, Derek took complete control of our finances. He set up automatic transfers that moved my business earnings directly into our joint account, which only he monitored. When I needed to purchase office supplies or take a client to lunch, I had to ask him for money. "Just trying to keep us on budget," he would say with a tight smile. You know how easily small expenses add up. If I questioned any financial decision, Derek would pull up spreadsheets and talk about investment strategies and compound interest until my eyes glazed over. He made me feel financially illiterate, despite the fact that I successfully managed my own business budget for years before we merged accounts. Soon, his criticism extended beyond money to my appearance. The clothes I'd worn for years suddenly became too revealing or unprofessional. The makeup I applied was too much or not enough. My hairstyle was outdated and needed changing. "I'm just looking out for your professional image," he would say. "First impressions matter in your line of work." Derek's moods became increasingly unpredictable. Some mornings, he would be the charming man I fell in love with, bringing me coffee in bed and asking about my plans for the day. By evening, he might be cold and distant, barely acknowledging my presence. I never knew which Derek I would encounter when I walked through the door. I developed anxious habits. Before speaking, I would mentally review my words to make sure they wouldn't trigger his irritation. I stopped sharing certain details about my day, especially anything involving male clients or colleagues. I began texting when I was running even 5 minutes late, afraid of the silent treatment that would await me if I didn't. My business inevitably suffered. I declined evening networking events that could lead to new clients, knowing Derek would question who I talked to and what time I came home. I turned down a major corporate retreat planning opportunity because it would require an overnight stay in Milwaukee. "I just don't think it's appropriate for a married woman to be staying in hotels alone," Derek said when I mentioned the opportunity. "People might get the wrong idea." Meanwhile, he monitored my phone with increasing regularity. If a male name appeared in my text messages, Derek would casually ask who it was and what we were discussing. He followed all my social media accounts and questioned any new connections I made. "Who's this Michael guy who liked your business page?" he asked one evening, scrolling through my Facebook notifications while I cooked dinner. "He's the marketing director at Parker Industries," I explained. "They're potentially interested in holiday party planning." "Interesting that he's checking out your profile at 8 p.m. on a Saturday," Derek remarked. "Seems unprofessional." My self-confidence eroded with each passing week. The Rosalie who confidently pitched to corporate clients and commanded rooms full of vendors began to disappear. In her place was a woman who second-guessed every decision and apologized constantly. One evening, I tried to talk to Derek about his behavior. I carefully practiced what I would say, making sure not to sound accusatory. "I feel like things have changed between us," I began tentatively. "I miss the way we used to communicate." Derek looked at me with genuine confusion. "What are you talking about? I communicate with you every day." "It just feels different. Sometimes I feel like I can't do anything right in your eyes." His expression changed to one of concern mixed with slight irritation. "Rosalie, I think you're being oversensitive. If I've been stressed, it's because I'm trying to keep our financial future secure while my company is in turmoil. I'm sorry if my concern for our future makes you feel bad." By the end of the conversation, I was apologizing to him for bringing it up. Derek had a way of twisting my words until I questioned my own perceptions. Was I being oversensitive? Was I imagining problems where none existed? The breaking point of this phase came when Derek accidentally broke my grandmother's antique vase. It was one of the few items I had inherited after she passed away, a delicate hand-painted piece that always sat on our mantel. We had been arguing about my work schedule when Derek gesticulated wildly, knocking the vase to the hardwood floor where it shattered into dozens of pieces. Instead of apologizing, he blamed me. "If you hadn't made me so upset, this wouldn't have happened," he said, stepping over the broken pieces as he walked away. And really, that old thing was ugly anyway. I knelt on the floor, carefully gathering the shards, tears streaming down my face. It wasn't just a vase. It was one of my last connections to a woman who had always encouraged me to stand up for myself and follow my dreams. As I collected the broken pieces, I realized I was becoming a broken version of myself. But some part of me still believed that the Derek I fell in love with was in there somewhere. That things would get better if I just tried harder, was more understanding, more patient. When Derek suggested I scale back my business to focus more on our marriage, I reluctantly agreed. I referred several potential clients to competitors and reduced my workload by nearly half. I told myself it was temporary, just until things improved between us. I didn't realize then that things would get much worse before they got better. 6 months into Derek's increasingly controlling behavior, I ran into Jasmine at a coffee shop near my office. I was there meeting a rare new client, and she was in town for a work conference. Seeing her familiar face after months of isolation brought tears to my eyes. "Rosalie, what's wrong?" she asked, her expression shifting from delight to concern. "You look different." We sat in a corner table, and the story poured out of me in whispered fragments. The financial control, the criticism, the isolation, the constant walking on eggshells. Jasmine listened without judgment, occasionally reaching across to squeeze my hand. "This isn't your fault," she said firmly when I finished. "What Derek is doing is abuse, even if he never hits you." "Abuse?" I repeated the word, feeling both foreign and frighteningly accurate. "But he's never hurt me physically." "Financial abuse is real, Rosalie. So is emotional abuse. My sister went through this. Remember the control, the isolation, the manipulation. It's all from the abuser's playbook." She pulled out her phone and showed me a website about domestic abuse. As I read through the list of warning signs, my stomach tightened. Derek's behavior matched almost every item. "I don't know what to do," I admitted. "All our money is in accounts he controls. My business has lost clients. I feel stuck." "You need a safety plan," Jasmine said, "and I'm going to help you create one." Over the next few weeks, Jasmine and I communicated through an app that deleted messages after they were read. She helped me understand that I wasn't crazy or oversensitive. The fog of confusion Derek had created began to lift. I started seeing the remaining few clients I had behind Derek's back, telling him I was meeting with friends from my yoga class. Instead of depositing all the payments into our joint account, I kept some cash hidden in a tampon box in our bathroom, knowing Derek would never look there. I researched domestic violence resources on computers at the public library, afraid to leave any trace in my browser history at home. I memorized hotline numbers and saved the contact information for a women's shelter under a fake name in my phone. Then came the discovery that changed everything. I was looking for a charger in Derek's desk drawer when I found his second phone. I had never seen it before, and curiosity made me turn it on. There were hundreds of text messages between Derek and a woman named Alyssa, who appeared to be his coworker. The explicit messages and intimate photos left no doubt that they were having an affair. The pain of betrayal was acute, but strangely it also brought clarity. All this time, while controlling my every move and accusing me of inappropriate behavior, Derek had been unfaithful. The hypocrisy was staggering. I took photos of some of the messages with my own phone, then carefully returned everything exactly as I found it. That evening, I confronted Derek after dinner. "I know about Alyssa," I said quietly. His face went through a series of expressions, shock, anger, then a calculated calm. "What are you talking about?" "Your coworker. The one you've been sleeping with." I saw the messages, Derek. He denied it at first, then tried to minimize it. "It was just a few texts, Rosalie. Nothing physical happened." When I made it clear I knew the full extent of his betrayal, his strategy changed. Suddenly it was my fault. "What did you expect?" he snapped. "You're always busy, always distracted." A man has needs, Rosalie. If you were a better wife, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere. His words hurt, but they also confirmed what Jasmine had helped me see. This was not a healthy relationship. This was not love. I think we should see a marriage counselor, I suggested, part of me still hoping there was something worth saving. Derek's face contorted with rage. A marriage counselor. So you can tell some stranger all our private business. So you can make me look like the bad guy. I had prepared his favorite soup for dinner that night, hoping the comfort food might make the conversation easier. It was a recipe from his mother, beef barley with fresh herbs from our garden. The pot was still on the table between us. In one swift motion, Derek grabbed the pot and threw the contents directly at my face. The scalding liquid poured over my head and shoulders, the pain immediate and shocking. Chunks of vegetables and meat clung to my hair as the hot broth soaked through my clothes. "You have 10 minutes to leave," he shouted, standing over me as I gasped in pain. "Pack whatever you can carry and get out, or I'll throw you out myself. This is my house. I pay the bills here." I stumbled to the bathroom, my skin-burning tears mixing with soup on my face. As I looked in the mirror at my reddened skin and soup-soaked hair, something inside me hardened. A plan began to form. As I stood in our bathroom, my skin stinging from the hot soup, I made a decision. This would be the last time Derek hurt me. I gently patted my face dry, careful not to further irritate the red sensitive areas where the soup had burned my skin. I could hear Derek in the living room, his heavy footsteps pacing back and forth, occasionally punctuated by the sound of him punching the wall. With shaking hands, I took out my phone and texted Jasmine our predetermined emergency code. "The blue umbrella is broken." It was a phrase we had established that would tell her I needed immediate help without alerting Derek if he saw my phone. Her response was immediate. "On my way. 20 minutes. Stall." I took several deep breaths, calming myself. The safety plan we had developed over the past few weeks was now activating. Every detail Jasmine and I had discussed would need to be executed perfectly. I opened the bathroom door and walked to our bedroom, where Derek stood watching me with cold eyes. "I said 10 minutes, he snarled. "The clock is ticking." "I need to get some clothes," I said, my voice deliberately meek. "Can I at least take enough for a few days?" He gestured dismissively toward the closet. "Take whatever you can carry in one suitcase. Everything else stays. You can arrange to pick it up later when I'm not here." I pulled out a suitcase and began placing clothes inside, moving slowly and deliberately. While Derek watched, I packed items I didn't care about creating the appearance of compliance. What he didn't know is that I had already packed a go-bag with my most important documents and irreplaceable items weeks ago hidden at Jasmine's brother's house. After a few minutes of watching me pack, Derek seemed satisfied that I was following his orders. His posture relaxed slightly. "I'm going to get another beer," he announced. "When I come back, you better be ready to walk out that door." As soon as Derek left the room, I quickly took photos of my injured face and neck with my phone. The angry red marks were already starting to blister in places. Evidence Jasmine had emphasized. Always collect evidence. I went to the bathroom and retrieved my emergency cash from inside the tampon box, approximately $2,000 I'd saved from clients over the past months. I stuffed it into my pocket, not the suitcase, knowing Derek might check its contents. From the kitchen, I heard the familiar sound of Derek opening a beer bottle. He turned on the television, the volume loud enough that I could hear a basketball game playing. He thought he had won. He thought I was defeated and would slink away as instructed, leaving him with the house and everything we had built together. He couldn't have been more wrong. When I heard the front door slam, I peered through the bedroom curtains to confirm what I suspected. Derek had stepped outside to smoke another habit he'd picked up recently. This was my opportunity. I quickly pulled out my phone and called a specific locksmith service I had researched weeks ago. They specialized in emergency situations for domestic violence victims and operated 24/7. "I need an emergency lock change," I whispered into the phone. "My husband has assaulted me and temporarily left the property. I need all exterior locks changed immediately." We can have someone there in 8 minutes, the dispatcher assured me. Please stay safe until they arrive. I provided our address and ended the call just as Derek came back inside. I continued packing the image of compliance while my heart raced with adrenaline. Approximately 20 minutes later, as Derek was on his second beer and fully engrossed in the basketball game, I heard a knock at the door. "Who the hell is that?" Derek demanded, setting down his beer. "I don't know," I said innocently. "Maybe a neighbor." Derek went to open the door. From the bedroom, I heard a deep voice say, "Good evening, sir. Chicago Emergency Locksmith Service. We received a call about a lock issue at this address." "I didn't call any locksmith," Derek said, confusion evident in his voice. "There must be some mistake." I emerged from the bedroom, my face still red and blotchy from the soup burns. "I called them," I said clearly, "because I'm not leaving. You are." Derek's face contorted with rage as he turned to me. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" "Changing the locks," I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. "You have 10 minutes to get whatever you need and leave. After that, you'll be trespassing." The locksmith, a large man named Tony according to his name tag, stepped between us. "Sir, I recommend you comply. I've already notified the police that I'm responding to a domestic situation." Derek looked from Tony to me, apparently trying to process this reversal of his plan. "This is my house," he sputtered. "You can't just change the locks." "Actually, I can," I said, retrieving the property documents I had secretly photocopied weeks ago from my purse. "The house is in both our names. I'm a legal resident, and after assaulting me with hot soup and threatening me, you've created an unsafe environment. I have photos of my injuries and witnesses on the way." As if on cue, another car pulled up outside. Jasmine emerged with her brother Kevin, who was in full police uniform. Though he worked in a different precinct, his presence in uniform was immediately intimidating. Derek's face paled. His plan was unraveling before his eyes. "You have 10 minutes, I repeated his words back to him. "I suggest you use them wisely." While Tony began working on the front door lock, Derek stormed back into the house, cursing under his breath. I stood my ground in the living room as he grabbed a duffel bag from the closet and began throwing clothes inside. Jasmine entered the house and gasped when she saw my face. "Oh my God, Rosalie," she whispered, gently touching my shoulder. "I'm okay," I assured her, though the burns still stung painfully. "Better than okay, actually." Kevin set up a small recording device on the coffee table, explaining quietly that it would document any further aggressive behavior from Derek. As Derek stuffed items into his bag, he alternated between threats and pleas. "You'll regret this, Rosalie. You're nothing without me. You'll come crawling back when you can't pay the bills." Then moments later, "Baby, please, I'm sorry about the soup. I lost my temper. We can work this out." I remained silent, watching the man I had once loved reveal his true nature. Tony finished with the front door and moved on to the back entrance. When Derek realized what was happening, he became frantic. "You can't do this. This is illegal." "Actually," Kevin interjected, "what's illegal is assault and battery, which is what you committed when you threw hot soup on your wife. You're lucky she's not pressing charges right now." Derek glared at me. "This isn't over," he warned. "Yes," I replied calmly. "It is." Precisely 15 minutes after Derek had issued his ultimatum to me, he found himself standing on our front porch with a hastily packed duffel bag. The new keys to our home were in my pocket, and Tony the locksmith was finishing up with the garage door. Derek pounded on the door, his face contorted with rage visible through the peephole. "Rosalie, open this door right now." I spoke through our security system, my voice broadcasting to the porch. "Derek, I've documented my injuries and have witnesses to your behavior. If you don't leave the property immediately, Officer Kevin will arrest you for domestic assault." "This is my house, too," he shouted. "You can't just lock me out." Kevin stepped onto the porch, his police uniform adding authority to his words. "Sir, I strongly suggest you leave now and contact a lawyer tomorrow. Continuing this behavior will only make your situation worse." Derek's rage escalated. He kicked at the door and punched the porch column. "You'll regret this, Rosalie. You think you can manage without me? You'll be begging me to come back within a week." His shouting attracted the attention of our neighbors. Across the street, Mrs. Patel opened her door to see what the commotion was about. 2 doors down, Mark and Jennifer stepped onto their porch. "Is everything okay over there?" Mark called his concern evident. "Mind your own business," Derek snarled at them. Jennifer approached cautiously. "Rosalie, do you need help?" Before I could respond, Derek kicked over a potted plant, sending ceramic shards and dirt across the porch. This final act of destruction was the tipping point. 2 patrol cars pulled up to our house responding to a disturbance call likely placed by one of the neighbors. As the uniformed officers approached, Derek's demeanor changed instantly from aggressive to victim. "Officers, this is my house," he explained, his voice suddenly controlled. "My wife has illegally locked me out and changed the locks. I just want to access my own property." I stepped outside, the evidence of the soup attack still visible on my reddened face and neck. "Officers, my husband assaulted me this evening by throwing boiling soup on me. He gave me 10 minutes to leave our home, and when I refused, he became violent." I showed them the photos I had taken of my injuries, time-stamped from just 30 minutes earlier. Jasmine and Kevin confirmed that they had arrived to find me injured and Derek in an agitated state. The officers separated us, one speaking with Derek while the other took my statement. When they saw the clear evidence of assault and heard accounts from multiple witnesses, including neighbors who had observed Derek's behavior on the porch, they placed him in handcuffs. "Daniel Derek Morrison, you're under arrest for domestic assault and destruction of property," the officer stated formally. Derek's face registered shock as the reality of his situation sank in. As the officers led him to the patrol car, he looked back at me with a mixture of hatred and disbelief. This outcome had never occurred to him when he threw that soup on my head. After Derek was taken away, the officers helped me file a temporary restraining order. Kevin, using his knowledge of the system, explained exactly what would happen next and how to convert the temporary order to a permanent one. "He'll likely be released on bail tomorrow," Kevin warned. "Make sure all your security systems are activated, and don't hesitate to call 911 if he violates the restraining order." The neighbors who had witnessed Derek's meltdown came over to check on me. Mrs. Patel brought aloe vera for my burns and a sympathetic ear. Jennifer and Mark admitted they had heard arguments from our house over the past months, but hadn't wanted to intrude. "We should have said something sooner," Jennifer said, her eyes filled with regret. "We noticed you weren't yourself lately, but we didn't know how to help." "You're helping now," I assured her, grateful for the community that was rapidly forming around me. That night, Jasmine stayed over, sleeping on the couch, while I tried to rest in the bedroom that had so recently felt like a prison. The house felt different already. Lighter somehow, despite the uncertainty of what lay ahead. The next day brought Derek's first attempts to regain control. He called from an unknown number, his voice alternating between threatening and pleading. "The police don't understand what really happened," he insisted. "You provoked me. You know you did. Just drop the charges and we can work this out." I ended the call without responding and blocked the number, but he simply called from another. After the 5th call, I stopped answering unknown numbers altogether. He then began contacting our mutual friends, spinning a story about how I had become unstable and fabricated abuse allegations. Some believed him, especially those who had only seen his charming public persona. Others reached out to me directly, wanting to hear my side. When Derek couldn't reach me by phone, he sent his brother to the house with a letter. I refused to open the door, but accepted the envelope through the mail slot. Inside was a combination of apologies, accusations, and manipulation tactics I had come to recognize all too well. "You know I love you," he wrote. "One mistake shouldn't erase 7 years together. We both said and did things we regret. Let's talk like adults instead of involving the police and courts." I filed the letter with my growing documentation of Derek's behavior. My lawyer, a specialist in domestic abuse cases, referred by a support organization, explained that such communications were typical of abusers trying to regain control. 3 days after Derek's arrest, I filed for divorce. The petition cited irreconcilable differences and domestic abuse with supporting evidence of my injuries and the police report. My lawyer also helped me secure an emergency court order freezing our joint assets so Derek couldn't drain the accounts in retaliation. When I finally gained access to our financial records, I discovered the full extent of Derek's financial abuse. He had been withdrawing large sums regularly, depositing them in a separate account I knew nothing about. He had also opened credit cards in my name, accumulating debt that damaged my credit score. Most shocking of all, he had been systematically transferring money from my business account into his personal investments, far more than we needed for household expenses. My successful event planning business had essentially been funding his lifestyle and stock portfolio, while he criticized my spending and controlled my access to our joint money. The evidence of financial deception strengthened my divorce case significantly. When Derek realized he couldn't manipulate or threaten me into reconciliation, he shifted to using the legal system to prolong the process and increase my costs. But with each delay tactic and legal maneuver, he only provided more evidence of his controlling behavior. Throughout these tumultuous weeks, I maintained the locks on our home and the restraining order against Derek. Each night I activated the security system Jasmine's brother helped me install. Each day, I documented every call message and attempt at contact. I was no longer the woman who flinched at the sound of keys in the door, wondering which version of her husband she would encounter. I was becoming someone stronger, someone who refused to be controlled or diminished any longer. And though the road ahead looked challenging for the first time in years, it also looked like my own. The months following my separation from Derek were simultaneously the hardest and most empowering of my life. Freedom, I discovered, comes with both exhilaration and terror when you've been controlled for so long. In the first weeks, simple decisions paralyzed me. What groceries should I buy? What time should I go to bed? Which clients should I prioritize? Without Derek's constant direction and criticism, I found myself second-guessing even the smallest choices. "This is normal," my therapist, Dr. Morgan, assured me during our weekly sessions. "Your decision-making muscles have atrophied. Like physical therapy after an injury, you need to strengthen them gradually." I started small. One day I bought bright yellow throw pillows for the couch, something Derek would have vetoed as tacky. Another day I ordered spicy Thai food instead of the bland meals Derek preferred. Each choice, however minor, helped me reclaim my identity. The physical wounds from Derek's soup attack healed faster than the psychological ones. The redness faded from my skin, but nightmares plagued my sleep. In them I was always trapped, always running out of time, always failing to escape. I would wake gasping, drenched in sweat, convinced Derek was in the house. Dr. Morgan helped me develop coping strategies for these episodes: grounding techniques, breathing exercises, a bedtime routine that included security checks of all doors and windows, not because it was necessary, but because it helped me feel safe. "Recovery isn't linear," she reminded me when I felt frustrated with my progress. "There will be setbacks. The important thing is that you're moving forward." Financially, the road was equally challenging. While the court had frozen our joint assets during the divorce proceedings, I had limited access to funds. The emergency cash I had secretly saved quickly dwindled as I covered everyday expenses and legal fees. I threw myself into rebuilding my event planning business, reaching out to former clients and networking aggressively. Many had moved on to other planners during the months I had scaled back, but a few returned out of loyalty or curiosity. My first post-Derek event was a small corporate retirement party. The budget was modest, the guest list limited to 30 people, but I approached it with the passion of planning a royal wedding. When the client sent a thank you note praising my attention to detail and personal touch, I cried with relief and pride. I still had my skills. Derek hadn't taken those away. Gradually, I reconnected with friends and family who had been pushed away during my marriage. Some relationships were easily rekindled. My parents flew in from Michigan and stayed for 2 weeks helping me repaint the living room and listening as I slowly shared the reality of my marriage. "We had no idea," my mother said, tears in her eyes. "You always seemed so happy in your calls and texts." I was pretending, I admitted. I was ashamed to tell you the truth. Other relationships proved more difficult to repair. Friends who had believed Derek's version of events kept their distance. Couples we had socialized with as a pair found it awkward to include just me. But new connections emerged to fill these gaps. I joined a support group for domestic abuse survivors, meeting weekly in a church basement with women from all walks of life. Their stories varied in details, but shared the same core elements of control and manipulation that had defined my marriage. For the first time, I didn't feel alone in my experience or ashamed of having been deceived. Intelligence doesn't make you immune, said Tanya, a neurosurgeon who had escaped an abusive husband after 15 years. These men are expert manipulators. They target strong, capable women as a challenge. Breaking us down is their victory. Through the group, I learned about the cycle of abuse, the red flags I had missed, and the statistics about domestic violence that made my blood run cold. 1 in 4 women would experience severe physical violence from a partner. Financial abuse occurred in 99% of domestic violence cases. The most dangerous time for a victim was when leaving the relationship. You were smart to plan your exit carefully, the group facilitator told me. Many women aren't able to leave safely. The divorce proceedings dragged on for months as Derek contested every aspect of our separation. He demanded the house despite its joint ownership. He claimed business assets, arguing that he had provided financial advice that contributed to my success. He even tried to claim that my injuries were self-inflicted in an attempt to frame him. My lawyer, Sarah Goldstein, was worth every penny of her substantial fees. A former domestic violence prosecutor, she anticipated Derek's tactics and countered them methodically. When he claimed financial hardship, she produced records of his hidden accounts. When he portrayed himself as a devoted husband blindsided by my actions, she presented the photographs of my soup burns and testimony from neighbors who had witnessed his outbursts. "He's counting on you giving up," Sarah explained during a particularly difficult week. Men like Derek believe they can outlast, outspend, and outsmart their victims. Proving them wrong is my favorite part of this job. 6 months into our separation, the court date for our divorce hearing finally arrived. I spent the night before in anxious preparation reviewing documents with Sarah and practicing techniques to remain calm when facing Derek. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, almost intimate in its dimensions. When Derek entered with his lawyer, my heart raced painfully. He had lost weight and dark circles shadowed his eyes. For a fleeting moment, I felt a pang of the love we once shared, but it dissolved when he looked at me with cold, calculating eyes. Judge Harriet Wilson, a stern woman with steel gray hair and penetrating eyes, had clearly reviewed our case thoroughly. She showed little patience for Derek's lawyer's attempts to paint him as the victim of an opportunistic wife. "Mr. Morrison," she interrupted during a particularly egregious mischaracterization, "the evidence before this court includes police reports, medical documentation, and financial records that directly contradict your testimony. I suggest you focus on facts rather than fiction." When it was my turn to speak, I feared my voice would fail me. But as I began describing the progression of Derek's control from subtle manipulation to outright abuse, strength flowed into my words. I spoke not just for myself, but for every woman in my support group, every friend who had lost her voice to an abusive partner. Judge Wilson's ruling came down decisively in my favor. The house remained mine, with Derek required to refinance his portion. My business was recognized as separate from marital assets, protected from his claims. The financial fraud he had committed by opening credit cards, in my name, resulted in him assuming all associated debt. Most importantly, the temporary restraining order became permanent. Derek was legally prohibited from contacting me or coming within 500 feet of my home or business. As we left the courtroom, Derek brushed past me, whispering, "This isn't over, Rosalie." Sarah immediately reported the threat to the bailiff, who documented the incident. "That's one more nail in his coffin if he tries anything," she assured me. That night, friends gathered at my house for a small celebration. We didn't call it a divorce party exactly. It was more a celebration of reclaimed freedom, of survival, of new beginnings. Jasmine flew in from Seattle. My parents joined by video call. Even Tony the locksmith stopped by with a state-of-the-art smart lock system for the front door. "On the house," he said with a wink. "We love success stories." As I looked around at these people who had supported me through the darkest months of my life, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: true safety. Not the false security of walking on eggshells to avoid conflict, but the genuine peace of being surrounded by people who valued my well-being and respected my autonomy. 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized, I received an unexpected email from a nonprofit organization called Phoenix Rising, dedicated to supporting domestic violence survivors. They were planning a major fundraising gala and needed an event planner. My name had been suggested by someone familiar with my work. The contact person was named Lisa Woodward. When we met for coffee to discuss the event, she revealed the connection. "Jennifer and Mark recommended you," she explained, referring to my neighbors. "They're on our board of directors. Mark's sister was in an abusive marriage for years before she found help through our organization." I was stunned. In all our friendly interactions, Jennifer and Mark had never mentioned this personal connection to domestic violence work. "They wanted to give you space to heal," Lisa explained, "but they also wanted to connect you with our community when the time was right." Planning the Phoenix Rising Gala became my passion project. I reduced my fee significantly and poured my heart into creating an event that would raise both funds and awareness. Every detail, from the symbolic Phoenix centerpieces to the survivor artwork displayed throughout the venue, was designed to honor the journey from victim to thriver. The event raised over $300,000, more than double the previous year's total. As the evening concluded, Lisa invited me to the stage to recognize my contribution. Standing before a room of supporters, survivors, and advocates, I found myself sharing a small part of my own story. A year ago, I was trapped in a marriage that diminished me daily. I said, my voice steady. Today I stand before you not just as your event planner, but as a fellow survivor. The work this organization does saves lives. I know because resources like these helped save mine. The applause that followed wrapped around me like an embrace. In that moment, I realized that my painful experience could serve a purpose beyond my own healing. My story, like those of so many others, could be a lighthouse guiding women out of dangerous waters. In the following months, my business evolved to include a focus on nonprofit events, particularly those supporting women's causes. I developed a sliding scale fee structure that allowed smaller organizations access to professional planning services. Word spread through advocacy networks, bringing new clients and purpose to my work. My personal healing continued in parallel with my professional growth. I learned to distinguish between genuine kindness and love bombing. I practiced setting boundaries and honoring my own needs. I reclaimed spaces in my life that Derek had dominated, from social gatherings to my own bedroom. Dating again was a frontier I approached with extreme caution. Dr. Morgan helped me identify the red flags I had missed with Derek and recognize the difference between normal relationship behaviors and controlling ones. My first few coffee dates were awkward affairs where I scrutinized every comment for signs of manipulation. "You're hypervigilant," Dr. Morgan observed. "It's a natural protective response, but eventually you'll need to calibrate your threat detection system." Gradually, I learned to trust my instincts again, to distinguish between healthy caution and paralyzing fear. I went on dates that didn't end in panic attacks. I made new male friends without constantly questioning their motives. I even experienced moments of unexpected joy in my newfound independence. 1 year after the soup incident, I held a personal ceremony of reclamation. I invited Jasmine, my parents, and members of my support group to a dinner at my home, where I served a different soup, as each course reclaiming what had been weaponized against me. To turning points, I toasted raising a spoon of butternut squash bisque, and to the strength we never knew we had until we needed it. As we shared stories of darkness and light around my dining table, I realized the most important lesson of my journey: recognizing your own worth isn't selfish, it's necessary. By reclaiming my value, I hadn't just saved myself from Derek, I had opened the door to a life richer and more authentic than I could have imagined while living in the shadow of abuse. The scars remain both visible and invisible. Certain sounds still trigger momentary panic. I still check the locks twice before bed. I may always be more guarded than I was before Derek, but these are small prices to pay for freedom. My story isn't extraordinary. Millions of women face similar battles behind closed doors every day. Some escape, others don't. The difference often comes down to resources support and the spark of self-worth that abuse never quite extinguishes. If you're watching this and recognizing your own relationship in my words, know that you deserve better. You deserve safety, respect, and love that builds rather than diminishes. The first step is the hardest, but you don't have to take it alone. If my story has resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. Leave a comment with your own experiences or insights if you feel comfortable doing so. Subscribe to this channel for more stories of survival and transformation. Remember that your likes and shares help these messages reach those who need them most. Thank you for witnessing my journey. In sharing our stories, we break the silence that allows abuse to flourish. We remind each other that even in our darkest moments, we are never truly alone.